Welcome to Retirementals, a podcast that dives headfirst into the issues facing the financial sector at the intersection of investment, technology and financial advice. Hosted by Abraham Oksanya, you can expect raw honesty, critical analysis and energetic interviews. Here is your host, Abraham Oksanya.
Hello and welcome to Retirementals. Unless you've been living under the rock, I'm sure if you're in the financial planning profession in the UK, you've been aware of the PFS versus CII debacle. So I want to dedicate this episode of the podcast to unpacking what's going on. With me on the podcast today is Sarah Lord, who is the past president of the PFS. She was so good, she served 2 terms. I don't think any other past president's done that. And prior to that, she'd been on the board of the PFS as a director for several years. Sarah, welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you for having me.
And also, we have on the podcast Alasdair Walker. Alasdair is a chartered financial planner and also the chair of the PFS financial planning panel or practitioner panel. Alasdair, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Abraham. Thanks for having me.
So, you guys, first of all, kudos to you for your service and your dedication to the profession. I think we often forget that people like Sarah, like yourselves, Al, who stick their heads above the parapet in the PFS, in the professional bodies, are doing this voluntarily. They're not paid. And it's a lot of work, to take on in addition to your day job. So thank you for the work you do. Thank you in particular for being relentless in getting your voice out there, in terms of explaining and adding context to what's actually going on. So I've been trying to get my heads around this. So Sarah, what the hell is going on with the PFS and the CII?
I'll try and summarize it swiftly, shall we say.
Please.
I think one of the things I would just like to say is, obviously, having served on the board for 6 years and president for 2, stepping off the board after my maximum term in September last year. Listeners, I'm sure, will respect that I am bound by board confidentiality for some of the time that I was, party to meetings. But equally, I'm here to help people understand what is going on and to give my view and my personal view. So, I'm looking forward to the conversation. I think quite simply, the CII and the PFS have coexisted happily, shall we say, since the formation of the PFS 18 years ago. The relationship between the CII and the PFS became particularly strained over the last 2 years, but arguably it was becoming strained before then, but particularly strained over the last 2 years. And that culminated essentially with the CII using its powers under the Articles of Association of the PFS on the 21st of December. Inconvenient timing when it comes to Christmas, but using its powers on the 21st of December to basically instruct or confirm that it is looking to appoint the majority to the PFS board. Now, in doing so, in making that announcement, it immediately appointed 3 institute directors. And just so people are clear, kind of an institute director is an individual that is paid by the CII. So they appointed an additional 3 directors, essentially neutralizing the board, so leveling it up. which is unprecedented because in the 18 years that the PFS and the CII have coexisted, there has always been a majority of member directors. And member directors are the volunteers. They are practitioners, business owners, specialists from certain areas within our profession who give their time voluntarily for the board. So 21st of December 2022, I think, will now forever be ingrained in my mind as a date of note, shall we say. And we're now currently in a period of consultation, but the Articles of Association clearly state that the PFS board have 30 days to consult with the membership. So given the timing of the notice that was given, and Christmas and people having an enjoyable time and extra bank holidays with it being Christmas, the time in which we kind of have to consult with membership is arguably significantly less than if the notice had been given at maybe just after Christmas or indeed earlier in the year.
So thank you for that sort of elaborate explanation, Sarah. So I'm wondering, maybe I'm actually jumping the gun because I want to follow this methodically. I'm actually wondering whether this, so the intention of the CII, which is the parent body or the parent company of the PFS is a subsidiary to the CII, but the intention is essentially to overtake, to flood the board of the PFS. So prior to the appointment, there were 5 director members and member directors and 2 CI or institute directors, as they were called. They've now added 3, so it's 5-5. But is it though? Because Caroline Stewart, who's the PFS president and a member director, has resigned her position, and we'll come back to that later on. Do they still need to go through this consultation that they want to go through over a 30-day period? Because in effect, they now dominate the PFS board, and they can do what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, on a technicality, I mean, it was really, really sad to see Caroline have to make that difficult decision to step down last week. She was doing a fantastic job. Obviously, I completely understand why she did take the decision to stand down. But yes, you're right. We now sit in a position that there are essentially 4 member directors and 5 institute directors. We are working through, obviously everything's moving at a pace, daily, hourly. We're working through actually what that means, and how to approach that. But we still have the ability under the Articles of Association to consult with the membership. I think it's also important that kind of people within the profession understand that the PFS board have the ability to do the 30-day consultation and go out to membership and get feedback through various means, channels, shall we say. And then there's a further 7 days, as described in the articles, for that feedback that's collated by the PFS board to go back to the CII. However, there is nothing in the articles that means that the CII have to act on that feedback, if that makes sense. So I think that's really important to understand as well, because there is obviously a lot of opinion out there from the PFS membership at the current time, and we need the PFS membership to be expressing their views and sharing their views, but the CII don't have to act on the feedback that is received. Now, arguably, as a professional, for if I was in that position with the CII, then I would take on board feedback, shall we say, and give due consideration to that feedback before maybe taking my final steps of adding another board director.
Wow. So, so Alistair, Sarah said that these two organizations have existed, amicably, shall we say, peacefully. There's always, I'm sure, things to iron out and to smooth out. But 2 years ago, these things started happening, this, massive disagreement. And you think, a lot has been said about this, the root cause of this. What do you think is going on here? Why is it that all of a sudden the CI becomes interested in interfering massively with what's going on with the PFS?
Thanks, Abraham. Well, Sarah's already mentioned that she, having sat on the board, she signed NDAs and board agreements and so on. No one's ever asked me to sign anything, so I'm allowed to pretty much say what I want. And I will. And by the time this goes out, I think I will have stepped down as chair of the financial planning panel. On the date of recording, I'll be resigning. Yeah, no, absolutely. Funnily enough, this quote I think comes from one of the past presidents of the CII. But the best way of managing a conflict of interest is to remove it. And I do have a conflict of interest here because I'm still moderating what I'm saying about what's going on, because I have half an eye on the fact that I am, chairing or have been chairing a panel for the last sort of year and a bit. That's quite important. The key thing for me here, and the thing that I keep trying to say to people, and it's a very fair question to say, why should I care? First of all, why should I care? And I can give you 20 million reasons why you should. And that is that for as long as I've been involved with the PFS, it's been in the ascendancy. It's been well managed, it's been well run, it's been well capitalized, it's been profitable, it's been visible, and it's been a large part of the professionalization of financial planning, which we all know is the best profession going. But that has been driven in large part by the PFS's drive towards getting people to higher qualifications than the standard required, towards putting on, proper events, festivals of financial planning. I think you've attended both as a speaker, Abraham. There is a buzz around that, which is PFS unique. I've also been involved with the CII as a volunteer, trying to get the education standards higher, trying to bring the qualifications, which are now a little bit out of date, if I'm being polite, into something that's a bit more reasonable. And my experience of CII employees, so this coming back to the why should I care, is that CII employees don't understand, don't seek to understand, and don't care about financial planning. If you mention financial planning to half of the CI employees I've spoken to, they kind of look at you with a slightly blank face. And that's the challenge that you face in a future where the PFS's influence and involvement is diminished. So that's one reason why you should care. And the other 19.999 million reasons why you should care is that is the accrued member funds that are currently under the Articles of Association reserved specifically for the benefit of PFS members. So that is money.
How much?
Just shy of 20 million, I believe.
Right,
So that
right.
I think it represents 7 or 8 years of.
Yeah, I can confirm it's about 20 million.
Yeah. So there is 20 million pounds of member surpluses that is currently held, as I understand it, effectively in escrow. It sits on the CII's balance sheet. They tried to include it originally, I understand, and again, someone can send a lawyer after me if they disagree, but I understand it was originally intended to sit on the CII's balance sheet, and the accountants that signed off those accounts that year wouldn't allow that, so it sits as a loan. It's an intercompany loan that the CII cannot access without PFS board approval. And what's about to happen to the PFS board? At the same time that the PFS has been in ascendancy, you can, and I think Daniel Elkington actually charted this out, looked at the annual accounts for both bodies over the last few years and put the revenues and the profits down, let's say profits losses on CII's part, down each year. And you can see very clearly an inflection point at which the CII's cash revenues hit zero, and it is coincidentally about now, as far as I can tell. And so there is a very, very strong incentive for the CII to do everything possible to allow them access to those funds. And that's why we should care, because I can guarantee that's not going to go. That's not going to go specifically to PFS members.
So this is interesting. A couple of things. So the CII accuses the PFS board of some sort of failing, failure in their oversight as directors. But I've read these things, and I can't put my finger on what they are actually alleging, and whether this is nothing in the list of 4 or 5 failings that they come up to is tangible that you can measure. And then it goes against what you're saying, which is to say, well, if the CII is accusing the PFS board of failure, well, it's certainly not one that we can see in the progress made by the both by the both organizations. So in the last 5-7 years, the PFS is just gone from strength to strength. And I read this article by Keith Richards, who was the former CEO of the PFS, and he says that I have huge respect for Keith, and I think he's done an incredible job, bringing the profession to the forefront. And he says that the PFS kind of strategy and plan were so good that the CII itself had to adopt it, a couple of years ago. And then when you read Caroline's resignation letter, she makes this point that you're making as the now past president, until a couple of days ago, that the PFS, the CII is in essence insolvent and is trying to lay hold of this fund. And I did a little bit of my own research and pull the account of the both organizations, and I actually shared it on Twitter, by the way, and you can see that the CII group consolidated account, over the last two accounts that you can see, this organization is losing money. The PFS is making money. Now, I work out that if you extract PFS profits from the CII, the losses are actually bigger, much bigger, right? Because the CII's consolidated account includes the PFS. And so what seems to be happening here, and again, I'll be interested in Sarah's thoughts, is that obviously, and Caroline said again in a letter that the CII asked the PFS board to guarantee a loan by a major bank, and the PFS board declines. Obviously, you can see why the CII is interpreting this as some sort of dereliction of duty, but it seems quite obvious that money is playing a big part in what's going on here. Sarah, do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I think there's a couple of things really to unpack there. So in the notification that was received on the 21st of December, you're right. You're right. In the public statement, there were a number of allegations made towards the PFS board, and those were the reasons given as to why the CII board felt it had to take that action. As we sit here and record this on Monday, the 9th of January, I personally, as the immediate past president, have not been provided with any evidence of the allegations that have been made. Yet, a member of the CII board who ran a guest column in Financial Planning Today 10 days or so ago is quoted as saying that they have scrutinised the evidence. The PFS board have not received any evidence of the allegations. And, I've said it publicly, I'll say it again. I strongly refute the allegations, and I would like to see the evidence for the so-called governance failings. That's one thing. Let's be transparent. Let's have the evidence out there for allegations that are made, which are deeply damning allegations as well. And as I say, I strongly refute those allegations, as do the other member directors and co-opted advisors. The second point is, it is my personal view, which, I think is, it is out there in public. It is my personal view that whilst the CII are saying this is not about money, it is my view that it is about money. And, there's been statements around money won't be used to be any differently than it has been, and it will continue to be used to meet the needs of PFS members. But there is also statements from the CII around that, in my view, are incorrect, that we haven't paid any contribution towards the costs of running exams. Why should the PFS pay any costs for running exams? We don't receive any of the revenue. All the revenue for exams goes to the CII. It is a CII engagement. So, there's a number of aspects out there that I think can be quite confusing. But, it was back in March 21. It's publicly available information, I think, from what I stated at the AGM in 2021. But yeah, the member directors declined acting as guarantor on a loan because we didn't receive sufficient information, or indeed consistent information, for us to be able to discharge our duties as directors, that we felt it was in the best interest for the PFS. If there had been a detailed and accurate proposal, the outcome might have been different. I'm not saying it would have been different. It might have been different. But we weren't provided with that information. So we couldn't do anything apart from decline the request, because we had to bear in mind our duties as directors to the PFS, to the company, and to the PFS membership. And the other key thing is, the Articles of Association of the PFS are very distinct, and it's very distinct that the PFS assets, their reserves, so the 20 million that is talked about, must be used in line with the objects of the Articles of Association. And the Articles of Association clearly state that the primary focus of the PFS is the facilitation and promotion of financial advice. That's really important that people understand that, because that is essentially the way in which, to a certain extent, the PFS assets and the reserves are, shall we say, protected. Now, I wrote in a piece last week that if I was a betting person, and I'm not a betting person, but I think, what we'll see pretty quickly is the CII seeking to increase the recharge that is paid by the PFS back to the CII for the services that are provided by the CII. So that's one way of getting extra money, shall we say. And also, I think there will also be a proposal that the PFS has not paid its way over the years, particularly during COVID, and therefore seeking to, get a couple of million. I don't know what the number might be, but an amount of money in relation to, shall we say, past services charges, the IT transformation program. But the institute directors that have been placed on the PFS board, their duty is to the PFS. And that needs to be remembered, that as a director of the PFS board, their duty is to the PFS, not the CII. But if anyone's actually read through the Articles of Association in detail, I've never been so familiar with a set of articles, there is a clause within the Articles of Association that basically says that the conflicts of interest from the Institute directors can be ignored.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it is pretty incredible. And I think to a certain extent that is one of the reasons that we're kind of where we are. Often with takeovers, you look over history, 9 times out of 10 with corporate takeovers that have happened in the past, it is about money. And it is my personal view that this is about money.
It's interesting that in 2020, the PFS, sorry, the CII group revenue was something in the order of 37 million, and they ended up with a loss, comprehensive loss, about 5 million that year, right? And the thing that jumped at me, someone actually pointed this out and said, how does an organization make losses from running qualifications, right? So they spent, they brought in 8 million from running professional qualifications exams, and they spent 13, nearly 14 million on this qualification, on providing the cost of running it. And I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't make sense. And then what you see, going back to your point, Alasdair, in 2020 is that, 2021 is that the PFS then, the CII, then wants to cut its cost, right? Because they can't continue losing 5 million pounds a year. Is that what they then did was that they cut member services, the amount of money they were spending on member services, by around 2.5 million. Losing bit, the loss making bit still remains the same. And and you look at this account and you think to yourself, this is an organization that is clearly in financial troubles. But then you stand back and you say, as far as the structure of the organization exists today, it's not in our interest as PFS members for the CII to, to go belly up, or is it? Because, all, as far as I understand it, the exams that people take, I say people take, or that I took, I say people take, because I haven't taken an exam in a very, very long time now. I think I've been there, done that, got the t-shirts, But so the way I understand is that the exams, even the CII exam, the diploma in financial planning exams, all of the revenue and the cost is handled by the CII. Obviously, we pay professional membership. I imagine that's split between the PFS and the CII. But my point is that it's not in our interest for the CII to go belly up. And so if this organization needs a little bit more money and we need to contribute as members of both organizations, although we are primarily, there's a reason why the financial planning members is separate from the general insurance. shouldn't we do something to put more in the kitty, or is it CII problem and the CII should solve its own problem?
Can I give an analogy?
Please.
That I think we come across a lot as financial planners, and you imagine you have clients in the office and they say, "Oh gosh, our son just cannot manage his finances, and this is the 7th time I've bailed him out, and the credit card bill just keeps racking up." And as a financial planner, usually what you want to say is, perhaps this is because it's the 7th time you've bailed them out, that the credit card can keep running the balance. Now, imagine if you, to try and analogize that to what's going on, imagine if it was the other way around. Imagine if you were the son in that scenario and it was your parents who kept racking up the credit card bills. And then rather than coming to you and asking you for the money, they came to you and said, "Oh, by the way, we're actually taking over your bank accounts. You're no longer a signatory, and we're going to bail ourselves out with that cash." Does that resolve the core problems in the management at the CII? Does that resolve what has led to them posting millions of pounds of losses each year? Or is it a short-term plaster over a much bigger problem? Because what strikes me as a member is, if you've got an organization that manages its finances well, that manages its books, that does things right, and post profits, and you've got an organization that's struggling, and which is struggling to the extent that it appears to need to make a clearly wholly unpopular move. I mean, there was a piece in the Insurance Post, an op-ed written by the editor of the Insurance Post, about how bad this looks for the CII, and that's like one of the key news sources of the insurance sector, from the editor. So you've got this wholly unpopular move to plug a short-term gap in the finances. You kind of think, where are the governance issues here? How is this going wrong? And who should be calling the shots to get it right? Should it be the organisation that seems to have spent £5 million a year more than it's earned for the last decade? That's the challenge I face. Is what? Okay, I kind of agree with you to the extent that, do we want our examining body, our chartered body, to go bust? No, I don't want that. But do we also want to give them a blank check? Well, we're not giving them a blank check. They're forcing it off us, and then hope that they sort it out in the meantime, because that's what PFS members are left with.
Yeah, you make an important point, and again, I'll come back to you, Sarah, that this seems to be a point that Caroline made, that the CII's problems are so deep that the proceeds from the sale of the headquarters, apparently that was 20 million, is not enough to fix its problems. And I was looking at the account in 2021, they spent 6.6 million odd on essentially transferring the risk of its defined benefit scheme. And so I was looking at, and they said this is the first. They said this is the first in the process of transferring that risk in the defined benefits scheme. And I was thinking to myself, well, if this is the first, how many more are there to come? And so going back to your point, Alasdair, that the problems are so deep that I don't even think, I question whether these 20 million pounds that the PFS have got is going to solve the problem. It would keep them going maybe for a couple more years, but it doesn't solve the fundamental issue. And I'm going to go there. I was looking at the salaries of these people running this organization. People are earning 200,000, 250,000. And this thing that they've just done, appointing 3 more directors, heaven knows what they're paying these people, and flooding the PFS board with more paid directors, and we're now in a position where volunteers, like yourselves, and that's sad, Alasdair, are resigning or thinking of resigning. Caroline's resigned. A couple of people, sort of the local PFS, sort of leaders are resigning. Well, the behavior here does not strike me as as one of an organization that is keen to get its house in order.
No, I think I mean, there's quite a lot there, but I think one of the key things is the PFS board, and as directors, we have a fiduciary responsibility, and therefore we have to give due consideration as to if you are to guarantee a loan, or you are going to provide capital, what that money is going to be used for, and whether it's in the best interests of the membership. And we've seen during COVID, there were many challenges with the exams provided by the CII, which had a detrimental impact on the PFS membership. There are, we've been operating, I personally feel, as president, over the 2 years, I was operating under an environment that I have never experienced before, of huge pressure, real challenges. And, some of that is because, to the point about, is it in the PFS membership's best interest to see the CII become insolvent? Well, no, it's not, because ultimately the CII is the provider of SPSs. Many a night have I sort of been thinking, not sleeping. I've lost so many nights of sleep over the course of the last 18 months in particular, but thinking, if the CII fails, then that's 25,000 people that are dependent, their livelihoods, their ability to trade is captured within that SPS. That's before you even consider like CPD and exams and other things. The SPS is people's livelihoods. So I don't believe it is in the PFS membership's best interests to see the CII fail. But equally, we have got to see a significant improvement in culture. This is my view, in culture and service, because I think, it is my personal view that the CII has lacked transparency, and I like to believe that I am a very transparent person, and that's how I like working with people. The culture needs to shift to far greater transparency, and the service that the PFS membership receives has got to improve significantly. And I think one of the challenges, I think Alasdair said it early on as part of this conversation, I do think there is a lack of understanding of how big the divergence between kind of the insurance sector and the financial planning profession has become. When the CII, the PFS formed as part of the CII group 18 years ago, we hadn't had RDR. There was a far greater alignment, shall we say, between the two different sectors. But now there's a real significant divergence, and that if the services are to be provided by the CII for the PFS membership, there has to be far greater understanding of our profession. But I said it last week in a piece, and it is really strongly my personal view that the PFS needs far greater autonomy within the CII group, and by autonomy, it's got to get its voice back. Some of the membership has been very vocal that since Keith stepped down over the course of the last 18 months, we have lost our voice with stakeholders. We have. There isn't, we completely have. I was president, and at the time there was no CEO. The hours that I put in, but I couldn't, we couldn't do it all. We've been calling for that representation. Also, we need our own infrastructure that really understands what the profession is about. Um, we are a separate legal entity. We are within our rights to appoint and have employees as part of kind of the business, and that's what I mean by autonomy. The PFS needs far greater autonomy because of the direction of travel for our profession.
And this is actually the crux of the problem, isn't it? Because in the days that Keith was the CEO, he had so much respect from the financial planning community because he was one of us, or he is, still, he was taken as someone running a network and to come and run the professional body. I don't know Don McIntyre or whatever his name is from Adam, and this is my words, not anyone. But he doesn't strike me. I mean, this is a guy who ran, some UK cybersecurity council. Maybe it's a professional body, but the experience and the respect that you need to garner from the financial planning community, I feel, is lacking. And so where does this take us to? Is really the direction of travel here. And I was trying to think about how this might happen. Someone wrote an article about, well, maybe there is a breakup of the organization. A personal finance society becomes an independent organization, runs its own exams, serves its own members in the financial planning community, and you leave the CII to attend to the general insurance community. Are we cursed as a financial planning profession that we always have to be some sort of, this is what's happened with the the IFP, that has become a subsidiary, or not subsidiary, subsumed is the word I'm looking for, of the investment and security, Chartered Investment and Security Institute. Is this a curse that, I know it's our history, that we were considered a subdivision of the insurance and the investment industry. Is it time for us to have a dedicated professional body serving the interest, the exams, the qualification, the training of the financial planning profession?
So I've given this quite a lot of thought recently, as you could probably imagine, and I think your assessment is a good one. You effectively currently have three visions of financial advice in the UK. If you look at its professional bodies, you have one which is effectively a subsidiary, or you might say selling arm of a bank with the LIBF. You have one which is a subsidiary or a selling arm of a stockbroker or a discretionary manager, which is CC, and you have one which is to a greater or lesser extent a subsidiary or selling arm of an insurance sector, which is our history, as you say. The closest to being an independent body of the three is currently the PFS, because it has its own legal structure, it is its own trading entity, it's limited by guarantee to its members. The challenge is, without that, what is it? If it becomes effectively a vassal of the CII and a cash cow, which I think is the direction it's going, what relevance does it have? What vision should we have for a financial planning body? The point about exams is an interesting one. I think we're the only profession which insists on having its members' bodies be the same as its examining bodies.
Right.
I think I actually think it's an anachronism, because as we know from other areas, vertical integration doesn't always lead to those efficiencies you expect it to. And it actually leads to conflicts of interest, which is one of the challenges we've got here, right? Incidentally, the COO of the CII told me following the AGM, when I asked a question of him, that 55% of exams taken in 2021 were PFS exams. So that's a big old chunk of exam revenue for the CII as well, that isn't reported anywhere as being related to the PFS. And so you've got this situation where you go, yeah, why is this the case? And that's a really hard one to answer. But I mean, seed capital, hours of work, all of those kind of things, hundreds of thousands of hours of work probably setting something like that up. Who's going to do it?
So, Sarah, what's the way forward here? There is this, forgive me, consultation, non-consultation. I've actually sent an email. No one's replied, to say we need an AGM. I say I have sent an email. I use Alasdair's template, which I can't stop seeing on my Twitter feed on Christmas, because over Christmas, so it keeps coming. So I said I better do this. So I sent an email, but Sarah, you said that they're not under any obligation to even consider the feedback that they are going to get during this consultation. They're not under any obligation to call an AGM, or are they? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think just on the EGM, I think, this is my personal view. I've been out there on LinkedIn and stuff. We need the PFS membership to be calling for an EGM. And Alasdair's done some great work on his website and made it really easy. We have received over 1,000 emails requesting an EGM. And so, there is significant disquiet, shall we say, from the membership. We also, as member directors and co-opted advisors, publicly stated last week that we believe there should be an EGM. The problem we have is and again, I've said this publicly, the timing of the notice given, in my view, was so disingenuous in the run up to Christmas that it really curtailed kind of the time available to consult, because even though me and other individuals as part of the PFS board were, shall we say, working on this over the Christmas break, I really did not get much Christmas at all. There is a lot of people have been on holiday, rightly so, and so we are constrained by time. So any EGM now will be outside of the consultation period. That's not to say that there shouldn't be an EGM. The way forward, and what I would like to see is, I think the CII, and again, this is personal view, but I think they have been taken aback by the feedback, shall we say, from the PFS membership, how strongly the membership feel about the actions that they've taken. I believe that the CII thought that the PFS wrongly thought that the PFS membership was apathetic, and therefore weren't necessarily expecting this backlash. My personal view is that the right and proper thing to do for the membership and to respect the membership is to be in a position where we're essentially neutral. So at the moment, because Caroline had to resign, she was put in a position where she felt she had no other choice but to resign. We have lost a member director. So I believe that the CII, if in my view, the right thing to do is actually to remove one of those directors, so that we go into or have a consultation and hopefully have an EGM where we're kind of neutral. I personally would have liked to have seen the CII showing a bit more respect to the PFS membership as well, as far as the timing is concerned, but also potentially considering an extension to the consultation period. To date, there has been no extension to the consultation period. So essentially the consultation ends on the 19th of January. It's just not enough time. And I really want the PFS membership to have a voice. And I also personally do not believe that there should be a majority of institute directors on the PFS board. I believe in our profession, it's run very well for the last 18 years with a majority of member directors and also lay directors. Then we don't need to take these steps forward, is my view. Equally, given the precarious situation we're kind of in just generally at the moment, I the CII becoming insolvent, I don't believe is in the PFS members' best interest either currently. One of the challenges, in some ways, over the course of time, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, we could get to a position where we have the PFS as a sort of a separate standalone entity. But you can't make that happen overnight, because a lot of our membership, over 8,000 members, put a lot of pride in their Chartered Financial Planner designation. Realistically, they'd need to be need to have kind of that chartered status, need to be able to provide SPS for the membership, which goes through the FCA. There are a lot of things that our members need that are essentially provided through the CII group, but that's not to say it's not impossible. It is possible, but it takes time.
Yeah. So just to wrap this up then, the key actions going forward is, so for the CI, we want to end up in a position where at most you have equal number of member directors and the institute directors, correct? We want the consultation period to be extended. Is that to consult more with the membership? I mean, we need a new president at least. So to elect a president, we need to go through what, an AGM? Is that how a president? Forgive my ignorance, Sarah.
No, the president's actually a board decision, but the president,
Right.
Fortunately, it's written in the articles that the president can only be a member director, so the president can't be an institute director. But yeah, I mean, the timing of the notice means that the 30 days has always been too short anyway, if that makes sense. But I personally think it's only fair and reasonable that the CII look to extend the consultation period before taking any further action. And I really would like to see them remove one of the directors so we get to a neutral position and I really would like to see an EGM.
Alasdair, what do we need to do to get this AGM done? If you're a financial planner, a member of the PFS listening, give us the details of what we need to do.
Yeah, so I started this a couple of days after the announcement, but you can go to ourpfs.co.uk, and there's information there. But fundamentally, it's send an email to Don McIntyre at thepfs.org with your PIN, your PFS PIN, and your name, and that should be counted as a member call for an EGM. Obviously in the email request one, but say there's a template and a button you can press to send the email on the website. But as I say, I mean, fundamentally what I want is the CII board and executive to stop briefing via press releases and to start having conversations. There is clearly a good portion of unanswered questions here about their governance, about the relationship of the PFS and the CII, and to hear absolutely nothing but press office briefings and the most minimalist of responses in the press, doesn't give me any confidence as a member whatsoever.
Good stuff. Guys, this is important. Do as Alasdair says. This is important, I feel, for the future of the profession. So if you haven't sent your email to Don McIntyre, please do so. And Alasdair's website helps with all that stuff. Look, Sarah Lord, Alasdair Walker, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for the work that you do in the profession. It's truly a labor of love, and it's very much appreciated and respected, by me, and I'm sure by your peers in the profession. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Abraham.
Thank you.
I'll be remiss if I don't thank my incredible team who worked very hard to put this program together. Thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Timeline Retirement Planning Software and PyTech Low-Cost Flat Fee Model Portfolio Manager. And to you, our listeners, thank you for your time. I hope you've had as much fun listening to the program as we have making it. You can find more about the show at retirementals.co.uk, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Abraham on Money. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.